Good evening and welcome. You're watching News Central now on News Central TV. My name is Mazino Appeal. The top stories at this hour. Petrol costs more as depot owners raise price to 950 naira per litre. Nigeria police threatens to sue Amnesty International over death claims in End Bad Governance protest report, and rescue operations for trapped illegal miners resume in South African mineshaft. The details coming up shortly. Welcome again. Now let's begin by telling you that premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, would likely cost more as depot owners have increased prices by about 4.75%. Now this follows the recent increase of crude oil prices, including Nigeria's Bonny Light, to $80 per barrel this week from $73 per barrel last week. Already, some depots, including Swift Depot, have increased their loading price to 950 naira per litre from 907 naira per litre, while Wasbab Depot has already increased its price to 950 naira per litre from 909 naira per litre. Similarly, Sahara Depot increased its price to 950 naira per litre from 910 naira per litre, while Shell Plucks increased its loading price to 960 naira per litre from 908 naira per litre. And then to politics. In the wake of the impeachment of the former Speaker of Lagos State House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, the new elected Speaker, Mojisola Miranda, has held a meeting with the Governor's Advisory Council party. Now the party leaders are relevant stakeholders. The Speaker, after the closed-door meeting, addressed members of the press, saying the aim of the meeting was to deliberate on the impeachment, which happened at the House of Assembly on Monday, and seek their blessings to carry out as the new Speaker.
Come here this afternoon to meet our leaders, the leaders of the party, to brief them about what happened at the House of Assembly yesterday, to seek their blessing, and which we have gotten.
The Rivers High Court has nullified the congresses conducted by the People's Democratic Party in the state in 2024. The court also restrained the State Executive Committee of the PDP from overseeing the affairs of the party and barred Aaron Chukwuemeka from parading himself as the chairman. Stephen Jumbo, the presiding judge, gave the order while ruling on an interlocutory injunction filed by Edwin Woko and Love Otuonye, both lawyers and also two other PDP members. The suit was instituted against Chukwuemeka and 9 others. The petitioners asked the court to declare the local government and ward congresses of the party held in 2024 as null and void. Now, to discuss this, we are joined by legal practitioner Henry Ekine. Henry, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Now, how does the court's decision align with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution as regarding the conduct of political parties' congresses?
Yeah, I think to the extent that the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that created the political parties, and then of course also created the courts, and the courts are there to entertain and determine matters that are brought before them by persons who are aggrieved, whether in associations or in other transactions between themselves and then one another. So I think for me, to the extent that members of a political party who are aggrieved by some actions of the political party or some organs of the political party can approach the courts, and then the courts are vested with the power to entertain such matters and then determine one way or another. That's just what has happened. So to the best of my understanding of the activities that have actually rocked the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State, it's got to the point where some aggrieved members of the political party, that is the People's Democratic Party, approached the court challenging the supposed or purported emergence of Aaron Chukwuemeka as the chairman of the People's Democratic Party, arising from the congresses that were conducted last year, which congresses were actually ordered not to be conducted by the court. because some actions were subsisting before the courts then, and then there were others restraining the People's Democratic Party from going on with those wards, local governments, and the state congresses. But in defiance, the political party went ahead and then conducted those supposed congresses. So I think that those dissatisfied members of the political party still in the court approached the court, and then the court just needed to do the needful. And then that's one point for me as a constitutional scholar. And again, one way I think that the courts would have to enforce their judgment and then insist that the decisions and orders of courts are obeyed by all persons and authorities in this country as enshrined in our Constitution, then indeed is to ensure that orders of court that have been made are obeyed strictly. And if any person defies such orders, then such actions that are taken and the consequences or outcomes of those actions should be null and void.
All right, are there any previous cases in Nigeria that we could use as a sample or a look back and see that this had happened in history before regarding congresses that were nullified on similar grounds?
Yes, there have been situations, I recall, that some political parties in the past have also defied orders of courts restraining the political parties from conducting certain congresses, and then they went on in disobedience of such orders of court, and then the outcome has actually out clearly. Sometimes, still in Rivers State, not too long ago, the All Progressives Congress, right, the APC, also had a restraining order restraining them from conducting certain primaries at some point. But they went ahead in defiance, conducted the primaries, and then such primaries led to the emergence of candidates of that political party for general elections. And at the end of the day, the All Progressives Congress did not participate in that general election because the courts held to the fact that they never were, their action was like a stupidity in their own sense, in quotes, where they suffered from the consequence of disobeying the orders of court not to conduct those congresses. And they went on, conducted the congresses. The leadership that emerged at that time, not being valid, conducted the primaries, and then those primaries were nullified. And I recall that the All Progressives Congress never had candidates in those elections in Rivers. I think it happened also in Zamfara or one or two other states across the country. So it's not the first time. This, for me, it is what the courts really needs to do.
All right, and what are the potential impacts of this court decision on the organizational structure and leadership of the PDP in Rivers State then?
Yes, I'm afraid, not being a member of the People's Democratic Party, but watching from the sides, and then also following the transactions of the party in Rivers State, and of course the developments of the party in Rivers State, I think that if I'm right with my history about the party lately, at some point, Mr. Desmond Akao was the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State. And at some point, he left that position, and I think he got an appointment, a federal appointment. Then Mr. Chukwuemeka Aaron acted in that state at some point, and then before this controversial Congress where he was supposedly elected. And then it will mean that with the decision of the court now invalidating those Congresses, and of course the outcome of the Congresses, meaning that the leadership, both the State Executive Committee and the State Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party in Rivers State are invalid. Those congresses were void, and so there is no leadership in essence. So perhaps it will leave the National Working Committee and National Executive Committee of the People's Democratic Party to look towards probably constituting a caretaker committee in Rivers State. Because I am not sure, I don't think that my position and my understanding right here is absolute, but I'm not sure that there was any substantive elected chairman before Aaron Chukwuemeka, other than Desmond Akao, to claim the position appropriately. But I do understand that those who approached the court before Justice Stephen Jumbo, being dissatisfied members of the party, I haven't quite got, fairly truthfully, I haven't quite got my hands, I haven't seen the order of the court, the enrolled order of the court, and the full judgment as to the claims of those claimants, whether they are claiming to be the authentic leadership of the party in the state.
All right, then. Well, Mr. Henry Akini, I want to say thank you very much for giving us your expert opinion on the matter.
Thank you very much, and it's always my pleasure to be on your platform.
Indeed, thank you. And now to security matters. Eyewitnesses in Kankidawa, Gidangoga community, located in Maradun local government area in Zamfara State, say over 16 persons reportedly lost their lives following an airstrike by the Nigerian Air Force, with many still missing. They also said about 9 confirmed to be injured have been discharged from the hospital, with 1 still in critical condition. Meanwhile, the state government has gifted the sum of 500,000 naira to each of the victims injured during the recent Air Force bombing at Zurmi and Maradun local government areas of the state. Governor Dauda Lawal made this known while paying a condolence visit to the affected victims of the strikes. Airstrikes by Nigerian Air Force intended to target armed groups such as Boko Haram, ISWAP, Nasarawa, and bandits have caused harm to civilians and their properties. The frequency of these mishaps, along with the increasing civilian casualties, raise questions about the factors driving the incidents and whether they are genuinely accidental or incidental. The Nigerian military claims that the airstrikes on civilian populations were mere accidents or mistakes. Now, to discuss this, we're joined. Let's take a look at this first of all, and then when we get back, we have a conversation on ground.
Over the years, Nigeria has recorded several accidental airstrikes by the military, killing residents across the country. A report titled Air Force Mishaps by SBM Intelligence, a research organization that compiles and analyzes data about happenings in the country, revealed that over 425 civilians were killed in accidental airstrikes by the Nigerian Air Force since September 2017. SBM said the airstrikes happened while the Nigerian Air Force was going after terrorists. The report lamented that mishaps had increased and that no compensation had been paid to victims' families. It added that Niger, Yobe, Zamfara, Borno, Nasarawa, Kaduna, and Katsina are the worst hit states in the country. On January 17, 2017, about 52 people were killed, while 120 others sustained injuries in an accidental airstrike on an internally displaced persons IDP camp in Ran, Borno State. On April 13, 2020, 17 people, including children, were killed after a Nigerian Air Force fighter jet bombed Sarakuru village in Damboa, Borno State. In April 2022, a Nigerian Air Force fighter jet reportedly killed 6 children when it fired a bomb targeted at terrorists in Shiroro local government area of Niger State. Also in June 2022, 13 residents were injured while 1 other died after a Nigerian Air Force fighter jet struck Kunkuma village in the Shafana local government area of Katsina State. In January 2023, 37 people were reportedly killed after a bomb exploded at the border linking Benue and Nasarawa states. In December 2023, more than 80 civilians were reportedly killed during a religious gathering in Kaduna State. Nigeria's military often conducts air raids against terrorists. These air raids have ended up killing some 400 civilians since 2017, according to Lagos-based SBM Intelligence. This development has, however, triggered both local and international outrage. Villagers and other residents of the affected communities have said they were not terrorists, but law-abiding Nigerians.
I'll be having a conversation with former Chairman Zamfara Committee on Prosecution of Bandits, Abdullahi Shinkafi, and also joining us will be Executive Officer at SBM Intelligence, Confidence McHarry. But first, let's go on a short break, and when we get back, the conversation resumes. And as from before, I was told I'm being joined by Mr. Shinkafi and Mr. McHarry from SBM. And of course, this conversation is still regarding the mishaps that have been noted from the Nigerian Air Force regarding bombings. So let me come to you, Mr. Shinkafi. First off, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Thank you. So, Mr. Shinkafi, what are the local community's concerns regarding the deadly airstrikes in Zamfara State, please?
First and foremost, I want to commiserate with the good people of Zamfara State and the government of Zamfara State. My special condolence go to the governor, Dr. Dauda Lawal, and the entire government and good people of Zamfara State. The accidental airstrike is a erroneous attack by the Nigerian Air Force. The Air Force targeted at the gang of terrorists, that is the armed bandit, but mistakenly attacked the civilian and the community protection guard, which 16 people were killed at Tungakara Akakindawa village of Gidangoga district in Maradu local government. It is very unfortunate. Many accidental airstrikes took place from 2017 to date. Even on the Christmas day, an airstrike took place in Sokoto, where some civilians were erroneously killed by the Nigerian Air Force. So all these issues should be, the Air Force should try to avoid this accidental airstrike. Many casualties were recorded for many years by the act of this Air Force targeting armed bandits or terrorists in Nigeria. It is a very unfortunate situation, and there should be a professional people who should be handling this airstrike. We salute the courage of the air component. Anytime when there's a report of these terrorists terrorizing the local communities, getting the intelligence report from the locals, but the Air Force component should always target the terrorists so that to avoid this future accidental airstrike against the civilians or innocent people. It is quite unfortunate.
Very unfortunate, Mr. Shinkafi. Let me come to Confidence. Mr. Confidence Makari, how do you verify the authenticity of the reports you collected regarding the incidents involving civilian casualties? And this is in particular in conflict zones like the Zamfara instance.
Talking about people who have families, family members who were victims of these attacks, and in some rare occasions, testimonies by the Nigerian military themselves. So, for instance, the one where it was first of all reported that the Nigerian army has gotten into the fray of using aerial weapons to attack bandits. It was confessed to the public by the Nigerian army themselves, especially when the Air Force came out to deny that they were ever in that particular territory. So, whenever these attacks happen, there are many layers of confirmation. You could get it from victims, you could get it from the state governments who always rush to cover up the mistakes made by the military, and on some rare occasions you also get it from the Nigerian military also.
Okay. Well, that's very unfortunate regarding the cover-up of the mistakes. But in terms of the actions after the bomb blast, now, Mr. Shinkafi, this is to you. We heard about the donation of 500,000 naira to victims who were injured, but what else has been done? What other arrangements have been taken to provide assistance to the families and the victims affected by the airstrike in Zamfara?
Yeah, this is an emergency relief provided by Zamfara State government before the full-scale investigation on how the accidental airstrike took place. So this is an emergency relief. It's a tradition of the state government. Whenever such calamities happens, banditry attack or this accidental airstrike, then the government will quickly give some emergency relief to the victims of the attacks. So this is already a tradition of the state government, which was established by the previous administration. So we salute the kind gesture of Dr. Dauda Lawal for giving an emergency relief to the victims of the accidental airstrike. But we are calling on the federal government and also the chief of the Air Force, that's the chief of air staff, to give often a full-scale commission of inquiry to find out how this accidental airstrike has been taking place in Nigeria. This thing cannot be swept under the carpet. Many lives have been lost through this accidental airstrike or erroneous airstrike. So
now,
this
Mr.
is an
Shinkafi,
unprofessional misconduct.
Mr.
There should be
Shinkafi,
an advance.
Mr. Shinkafi, I get you regarding what must be done regarding the airstrikes, but for the people who are suffering right now, has anything been done regarding perhaps maybe apart from the 500,000 naira that has been given to those who are injured? What else has been given to the families?
Yeah, many of the victims were taken to the hospital. In the general hospital, some were taken to the Federal Medical Center. According to the tradition in accordance with the Islamic injunction, were already buried. So, but some who were critically injured are taking medication in the Federal Medical Center or nearby hospitals.
Okay.
And the governor gave those 500,000 as an emergency relief to the families of the victims.
Okay then. So, Mr. Confidence Makari, are there any known discrepancies or maybe failures in the targeting procedures or intelligence gathering that could explain the civilian deaths in Zamfara?
To say or try to argue that its intelligence is kosher, is very, very accurate, but the results have shown that it is not. And this is not the first time that we're going to be having this, especially what they call friendly fire, especially in regards to the recent one that happened. I think it was in April 2022 that the Nigerian military used, I think it was the Air Force that drew fire upon ground soldiers of the Nigerian army on the tail of terrorists in some parts of Borno State. We also saw a similar thing in, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in Niger State about a year later, where about 18 vigilantes who were part of the DSS task force against bandits were killed. So in summary, the Nigerian military would like to say that the intelligence is kosher, it's accurate and all, but the evidence has shown that it is not. But there is actually a lapse in a saner climate or in a much more opportune environment. You could say that, okay, if these things have happened, and then on one hand, we have in the military argue that this intelligence is correct, that whoever he killed was a terrorist, and then the result on the ground is showing something different. We should be looking at something that a reconciliation of the intelligence. You understand? It's some sort of way to reconcile what is being said and what actually occurred. But the downside to this is the military doesn't want to take any responsibility for that, and responsibility will have to come into investigating whatever the source of the intelligence is, with a view to punishing whoever was responsible for it in whatever shape or form. But the military does not want to entertain these questions. And in the one time he entertained this question, he only gave a half-hearted apology and then told the media that it has arrested and it's put on trial 2 people for one of those attacks. But we've not heard of the head or tail of that. Nothing has really come out of that particular prosecution. So on one hand, you could say it is faulty intelligence, but faulty intelligence can only go so much as being an excuse. But in the event that it comes up over and over and over again, I think it begins to border on a case of incompetence.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Abdullahi Shinkafi and Confidence Makari, for giving us your expert opinion on the matter and, of course, clarifying exactly what the situation is in Zamfara. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let's go on a break. When we get back, Chief of Defense Staff says terrorists receive foreign funds to continue destabilization. When we get back from this break, join us then. Welcome back again. Now, Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa has alleged that terrorist groups operating in Nigeria are receiving foreign funding to sustain their destabilization agenda. Now, Musa said some surrendered terrorists, as well as those apprehended by troops, were found in possession of foreign currency. He emphasized the need for a more proactive and strategic approach to addressing security challenges across the country. Meanwhile, the High Command of the Nigerian Army, the military, has honored outstanding officers who have made exceptional contributions to the successes achieved so far, particularly in the ongoing fight against terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and other emerging security threats. So to discuss this, we are joined by security expert Edinan Osora. You're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Osora. So regarding this issue of foreign financing, how can financial intelligence be leveraged to trace and also block the flow of funds to terrorists, as has been noted by the Chief of Defense Staff? And also these organizations, what role do financial institutions play in identifying suspicious transactions?
I think we need to begin from the financial institutions or the financial systems in Nigeria. You just this week or past week, some monies were returned to Nigeria from the United States. Money said to belong to former Minister of Petroleum, Alison Madueke. Now, how did they get to know that? That was entirely monies that came up due to the kind of audits and compliance of their financial system. So, number one, we need to make it punishable if a bank or a financial institution will allow monies to flow, illicit funds to flow through our banking system. We need to get to that point. We need to. And because if you don't, and then these things will continue. And most importantly, government really need to, like we try to copy some things halfway. If you contravene any law in the banking system in the UK, in the US, or anywhere in Europe, your name will be mentioned. Your money is seized, it will be mentioned. It's not a whoosh kind of a thing. But here you only hear money is passing through, illicit funds are passing through our banking system, and people, sometimes names are mentioned abroad, and those people are never, brought to book. And if we don't do that, sir, we keep on having this problem.
Okay. So what are the common methods? I'm hoping we know. What are the common methods used by terrorists to actually launder foreign funds, and what techniques can be employed to detect such activities?
Sometimes we need to check some of our international businessmen, traders, people, bringing in big multi-billion naira vehicles. You need to also check out people bringing luxury items. Because sometimes it may not really be cash is coming in, which is easily detectable if our banks are doing the right thing. So we begin to need now to do a kind of surveillance on luxury items of all kinds, whether we're talking about watches, we're talking about cars, we're talking about clothing, we're talking about, of course, there are all kinds of costly luxury items. We need to begin to look into that. And then again, the issue of our borders, the way presently they are, somebody can easily walk in with millions of dollars across our borders, which will be difficult for us to trace it to any of the banks. And so we need to, while we're talking about auditing our banking systems or putting surveillance on them, we also need to look at our borders. We're still having issues. People come into our country and go out. And through such means, arms come in and go out. What about the issue of, you just hear it it's like voicemail, you hear people talk about illegal mining. And they are everywhere, almost everywhere in all the states. You see people mining in the daytime, morning time, mining in the afternoon, mining in the night. When these mining things are done, who buys them? You are mining gold. Who buys them? Illegal miners. Sometimes you see arrests made of Chinese people, of people from other nationalities. They are arrested, and we don't get to hear again. Are they taken to the court of law? Are they convicted? Are they serving their jail terms? Who are their collaborators in Nigeria? Because, of course, there's no way some of these Chinese people that are being arrested every day by our security agencies, by our law enforcement agencies, somebody can just take a flight and then come into Nigeria.
All right.
So who are the collaborators in Nigeria? We need to begin to look at all this, because it's possible, it's possible that some of these guys, maybe people just come in, people are mining for them, and because, of course, like in Zamfara, the gold, Yes.
Now, regarding international cooperation, how do international cooperation and information sharing between intelligence agencies contribute to identifying and blocking terrorist financing?
I just hope that very soon the government will, I think let's start from our offices all over the world, our embassies. The earlier we have our designated ambassadors posted to those countries, the better it will be for us, because some of these things is not a matter of carrying your telephone and speaking to someone. We need to have our ambassadors in place so they can do the running around within the countries that they are. You know, for instance, I think last week some Chinese people were arrested. But look at the number of people doing internet fraud in Nigeria. The other time, about 700 or 800 something people. So many foreigners, you know, from several countries were arrested. So we need a situation where our embassies in these countries are active with designated ambassadors. We need to start from there. And why do I say so? Because if you just come, you make some arrests here in Nigeria, and then the people are shown on television, and of course, you see, they look very remorseful. They look as if they were taken captive. They don't look like people who have been committing some serious criminal acts here. But you know, if you have your ambassadors in those countries, they can easily get in touch with their foreign offices. They say, look at what your people are doing here. So number one, we need to do that. That's where I think we should really start. And of course, the other international, you know, financial institutions that do these collaborations, we need to strengthen our system. And one wants to hope that the government agencies involved will hear the cry of the Chief of Defense Staff and will do the needful. But we need to have our embassies in place.
All right, so
ambassadors working in those places.
Let's say thank you very much for joining us this evening and giving us your expert opinion on the matter. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And now moving on. Residents of Papalada, a satellite community in Nasarawa State, say they remain shocked over the murder of Salome Adaidu by a youth in the community. Now, they say the alleged murder for alleged ritual purposes, which has taken the headlines in the last 2 days, has cast fear on the community as many youth have fled for their lives. Salome was allegedly murdered by a youth in the community known as Timi Ajayi, who was apprehended with her head as he tried to deliver it to unknown accomplices. Earlier, News Central's Amadin Uyi spoke on his visit to Papalada.
This extension where there is a light, you can see the light source there. That is actually his room where he stayed before this incident. But just like I said, we've not been able to go through the gate, but this is his actual room.
The guy, always you see the guy with chaos. Even we ourselves as the area men that he meets in the area, you understand, but we never see this guy with a young man. We normally see you with girl. Sometimes when we sit there in the bar, when the guy come around with babe, this guy normally hang around with babe every day and different girls every day.
There are also reports that he's a gospel singer. Is it true or is just a farce?
It's after this conflict that is happening that people are start showing me on net that he's a gospel speaker. Even though I don't know the guy work, I don't know in duty, I don't know what he's doing. But sometimes he dressed like someone that is abnormal.
The Nigerian police have threatened to sue Amnesty International if a report on the End Bad Governance protests is not retracted within 7 days. In November 2024, Amnesty published a report titled Bloody August, Nigerian government's violent crackdown on End Bad Governance protests. In a report, the organization said at least 24 protesters were killed, with 1,200 others arrested during the marches. But the police said in December 2024 that it had set up a special panel to investigate the claims. The police had said the panel found the report to be false and requested the organization to retract it and issue an apology. 2 medical doctors working with the Sokoto Specialist Hospital and 4 of their friends have lost their lives in a road accident along the Bodinga-Yabo Road. Doctors Anas Chika and Abubakar Shehu, along with their friends, were traveling to Kebbi State when their car collided with an oncoming truck. The Chief Medical Director of Sokoto Specialist Hospital, Attahiru Isa, confirmed this incident. He said the deceased were attached to units that served a large number of patients and were dedicated to their work until their untimely demise. Now, the high rate of out-of-school children has continued to increase, raising concerns for stakeholders. With children touted as the leaders of tomorrow, the issue of a sound education prepares them for the task ahead of them. However, the problem of rising cases of out-of-school children threatens the very foundation needed for these future leaders. News Central's Chizoba Wayne Joss, the Plateau State capital, takes a look at this development.
So many pupils within the primary level of education resumed for the 2024-2025 academic session on Monday. Sadly, many of their peers did not, and these ones seem not to have hopes of ever attending a school to get educated. Statistics from the National Mass Education Program Initiative says among the states in Nigeria, Kebbi has the highest rate of out-of-school children with 67.6%, while Anambra has the lowest, 2.9%, and Plateau in the North Central Zone has a 23.2% rate. With these statistics, Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world, and this is against the backdrop of the facts that it has free and compulsory education policy for children in the country. What is the reason behind this high rate of out-of-school children, especially in Plateau State?
Particularly for us on the Plateau, we have the issue of mining activities by learners who are supposed to be in school. We have the issue of insecurity that is being nipped in the bud. We have the issue of strike, persistent strike. We also have the issue of poverty that people hinge upon. Sometimes it's more of fiction than reality.
In the face of poverty, insecurities, and other barriers that seem to be the major reasons behind these high rates, the question on the lips of many is, what is the way forward in Plateau State?
Government is working on building centers for displaced persons to be able to, so as not to lose out completely. And then for the mining aspect, we are working on legislation so as to ensure that school-going age children are back to school. These are some areas in which we are working upon to ensure that the out-of-school syndrome is curtailed to the barest minimum on the plateau.
Now, as plans of government are still being waited upon, stakeholders have been urged to wade into this fight against the alarming rate of out-of-school children in the state. In Jos, Plateau State, for News Central, Chizoba Aniowe.
Coming up, 56 miners extracted alive, 15 deceased miners retrieved in South African miners' tragedy. Details of this and more shortly. Join us then. Now, South Africa's Police Minister Senzo Mchunu and Minister Mineral Resources and Energy Minister Gwede Mantashe have visited Stilfontein Mine in the northwest, where a large-scale rescue operation for illegal miners trapped underground is underway. The visit coincides with the third and final phase of a large-scale operation to dismantle the illicit mining network. On Monday, rescuers deployed a cage to retrieve the first group of miners, marking a significant step in the recovery process. So far, 56 miners have been extracted alive, while 15 deceased miners have been retrieved since day one.
They give you different figures. They give you different estimates. Now, when will we know how many people will still remain underground as opposed to those who will be out. We will be working. What we can say is that we have agreed, all of us here, that this operation is underway for 10 days from yesterday. Then after 10 days, we'll stop to assess. Now, any indicator or indication that it still has to go on, or there are still people who are underground, or whatever, we will take on board until we are more than reasonably satisfied that we've done everything reasonable to get everybody out, those who are alive and those who are no longer alive. We will do our best.
Now, the recent rebasing of Nigeria's gross domestic product, the GDP, now incorporates pension fund administrators, highlighting the sector's economic importance. Announced during a workshop by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group and the National Bureau of Statistics, the revised GDP includes previously omitted activities such as digital economy operations and modular refineries. Experts have raised or rather praised this development, noting that the pension industry manages over 21 trillion naira in assets and plays a crucial role in supporting financial markets. Wonu Kunle-Bello, head of funds and investment managers ratings at Augusto & Co., discussed the significance of the pension industry's role in the GDP rebasing plan and its support for Nigeria's bond and investment markets on Business Edge.
The pension industry is a significant part of Nigeria's financial services sector today. If you think about it, pensions on their own, they provide the largest pool of funds, investable funds, which is used to support the traditional banking system. So when I say that, what I mean is that, pension funds, this 21 trillion is invested back into the real sector with the government. So, pension funds go ahead to support real sector growth. It goes ahead to support funding for working capital needs for operators in these sectors. To put it into a bit more context, if you think about the insurance industry within the financial services subsector, insurance assets are, under 4 trillion, by estimates. And if you look at that and you look at the contribution to GDP, it's about 0.4%. And insurance has been part of the GDP calculation for years now. So I think it's about time that we had pensions included as well as a subsector of the financial services.
On Monday, the Johannesburg Stock Exchange saw a notable decline, closing down 1.7% at 82,046 points, its lowest since mid-September. The JSE All Shares Index dropped over 1.8% earlier, briefly falling below 82,000 before recovering slightly. The top 40 index ended 1.79% lower, with industrial stocks experiencing the largest losses, falling over 2%. Key losers include DRD Gold, down 5.3%, and both WBHO and Telkom, which fell 4.2%. The rand weakened to 19.11 rand, nearly 7% lower against the dollar compared to a month ago. However, early Tuesday saw the rand firming up to 18.9850 against the dollar, as markets await U.S. inflation data for insights on the Federal Reserve's interest rate decisions. And that's all for this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Petrol is set to cost more as depot owners raise price to 950 naira per litre. Nigeria police have threatened to sue Amnesty International over death claims in bad governance protest reports. We also told you that rescue operations for trapped illegal miners has resumed in South African mine shaft. To remember, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and of course on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. My name is Mazino Appeal.